think it's here. Let's just check this real quick, though, shall we? Oh, come on now. Open up the way you need to. Don't just tease it. Oh, you didn't do it today. You let me slide it today. Sometimes it doesn't want to slide. It just sits there like a dirty little butthole. It doesn't let it slide at all. You just click and you slide and you move and nothing ever happens. It's actually just annoying as shit. Alright. So today's Diablo 4 versus POE. I am curious what he thinks about this because he made 2 channels on YouTube devoted to Diablo 4 basically. So I'm very curious to see how this goes. His takes on Diablo have been very fair, very accurate, and a lot of the time like rose tinted. So I'm curious to see how he feels about things at the moment with him also playing POE lately. This is another person we're going to drop preemptive like on. That's all he got there.
Admit it.
Oh, wait, what did he forget to mention?
Body wash.
I'm not letting hotel soap near my skin. It's the lavender and mint for me. Get that.
Savannah, if you don't get your moisturized hands off my body wash.
Rude. This is what I'm...
Over the last 2 days, I have put in 20 hours into Path of Exile. This is not enough to fully understand the game, but it is definitely enough to tell you there is some massive differences between this game and Diablo 4. Now,
Yes.
what I said in my review video of Diablo
Yes, there
4,
are.
and I do believe continues to be the truth, is that Diablo 4 is actually a game designed and built around entry-level players into the ARPG genre. I, of which, was one when Diablo 4 came out. I haven't played many ARPGs. Yeah, I played Lost Ark, and, I played a little bit of Diablo 2, but I wasn't really like a master blaster through any of the ARPG categories. Which
Right.
makes the fun graph of Diablo 4 look something like this. You start the game right here. As you are leveling towards level 80, you are having more and more fun with the game. Around level 80, the game starts to get more boring because this is where we just do nightmare dungeons over.
See, and he experiences this at like level 80. All you're doing is nightmare dungeons, nightmare dungeons, nightmare dungeons. Just trying to get your drops to get your loot, right? I got to like level 50, beat the story, because you're like level 50 or so once you beat the story of the campaign, right? That was fine, but then it was like the XP completely drops off, and they want you to just go do a bunch of side missions, nightmare dungeons, the... what are they? The hell things that are going... Hell tides. Jesus, can't think of things. But they want you to do the Nightmare Dungeons. They want you to do the Hell Tides. They want you to do all the side quests. You have to get yourself to level, 70, I think? And then a recommended 70 to do the Capstone Dungeon. And then you're supposed to get to level 100 and do Uber Lilith, right? And here's the thing. 50 to 70... takes way longer than 1 to 50. And there's not shit to do it. Nothing. At all. And at level 50, you're finding gear that has like the perfect rolls on it for your character. That if this piece of equipment was a higher level had just a higher level on it, you'd have the better stats for it, making it your best piece of gear to have. Unless you get the exact same roll, basically, on the same piece of gear at a higher level of an item drop, so that the numbers are higher. So you're not even trying to get new gear, you're just trying to get a better roll on the gear you already have. So at level 50, you start seeing the fun. Instead of going up, I would say at level 50, it goes like this. Like it stops with this upward trend so much, and it starts to peter out, and then I'd say once you get up to level 80 and you really don't have anything else to do, which is probably closer to level 70, and you really don't have anything to do after you finish that capstone dungeon, right? I'd say at that point you're up here, but it probably ends up way over here instead, and then it kind of plateaus, and then you're sick of it, and it comes down, and for me, it comes down way sharper than it goes up. So for me, I'd say this line is, it starts out steep, and then you finish the story, and then it gets real shallow. And then it's going to plateau for a little bit at 70, not level 80, and then it's going to come down, and it's going to come down hard, pretty much like this. Because what the fuck are you doing?
And over again, and then the game gets way more fun right when you beat Uber Lilith, and then it's right back to grinding Nightmare Dungeon.
So it's not even that it gets way more fun when you beat Uber Lilith. It's just like, man, Uber Lilith is something to work toward and do. But once you do it, it's done. And you're just like, okay, she doesn't even drop the best loot in the game, so why should I go back ever again?
Dungeons. So the game is mostly fun from the level 1 to 80 right here.
And once again, my explanation of this, Uber Lilith being something that doesn't even drop you the best loot in the game. The capstone doesn't drop you the best loot in the game. At level 50, you start getting the best loot for your class and character. But hey, what are you going to do? You need to go get that again for at a higher level, like level 60, level 70, level 65, level 82, level 91, level 100. You need it to drop for the higher levels so that you're able to have the higher stats, and you still have to get the roll to be as good, or else it might not be a better piece of gear. And then, on top of that, you're just constantly chasing that gear. But Uber Lilith, who's the last thing you're trying to work toward beating as a level 100 dungeon boss, like it recommends you being level 100 to fight Uber Lilith, then what do you have to look forward to this fight for? If this boss isn't going to drop you better loot, you beat this boss, it doesn't mean that you have better loot drop rates. It doesn't give you the loot rolls you want more often. This boss itself doesn't give you more opportunities at the loot you want. Nothing like that. Nothing like that at all, especially if you want like the really extremely rare pieces of loot that basically we've seen like what 1 or 2 of them have dropped in the US at all, on US servers or Western servers rather. So I want to say the Korean servers saw them before we did. But the thing is, so I want to say the Korean servers saw more of them than the Western servers, and that they saw them earlier than we did. However, nobody's getting them from Uber Lilith. They're all getting them from Nightmare Dungeons. So why are they going to go do Uber Lilith and look forward to it at all? It's just the reason that it comes back up for Uber Lilith is because of the excitement of something new that you haven't done yet, instead of doing this a million times. See, for me as a WoW player, this is what I noticed. Levels 1 to 50 feel like the World of Warcraft journey from level in retail WoW now 1 to 60, right? So your journey from level 1 to level cap, and then you get to level cap, which here I'm going to say is level 50 because it's when you finish the story, and level cap is when you finish the story in WoW. So you get halfway through your levels here, and you're done with the story. Whereas WoW, you're at the end of your levels. But then you're just chasing gear and getting levels along the way, because there's really nothing else to motivate you other than gear and levels, which is why level 50 and level capped for WoW are at the same spot, because at level capped for WoW, you're just chasing the better gear. The problem is, to get the better gear, you do the same thing over and over and over and over again. In World of Warcraft, this is Mythic Plus dungeon runs. And you're just going to run the same 8 dungeons over and over and over and over and over and over again for the whole season, hoping that you get the best loot to drop that you possibly can out of it, so that you can do higher level Mythic Plus dungeons and get the better gear. And then you can go beat the raid boss on Heroic and get your ahead of the curve achievement and maybe a mount. Maybe do it on Mythic and get the mount, right? So that's all it is. You have the same type of trend in WoW. And the fact is, I saw this coming and said, yeah, this is fucking boring. After I got to level 50, I saw that this was going to have the exact same kind of trend as WoW, that it was pushing you to do dumb shit over and over and over and over and over again. Like, it's going to be fun to do the exact same thing over and over so that you can do this one thing. The problem is here in Diablo, the one thing shouldn't even shoot up like that. It should come from way down here, and it should shoot up to maybe here. So in comparison, lower than it was at where he puts, like, being at essentially level 80 is what he says, because you run out of shit to do. You're just doing nightmare dungeons. I'm saying this pretty much starts at level 50, maybe 60. You could really knock out all the side quests and be like level 60, level 70. So, and then all you're doing is nightmare dungeons, because you don't really have anything else to do except for hell tides. And who's running around doing that shit? So the thing is, you're literally just level 60, 70. You're doing this, chasing this, but this is never going to feel like this. It'll always end up somewhere down here, because this has made you bitter toward the game. You're not really doing anything fun. This game is going to be really good for very casual players. Diablo 4 is very good for very casual players, because if they log in and they only have like 1 to 2 hours a day that they're playing, doing 3-4 nightmare dungeons and being like, cool, that's all I have time for, that's not going to get monotonous and annoying. But people who actually just play games, this sucks. It makes you not enjoy the game. It's dull, it's boring, and it's because you're doing the exact same shit over and over and over again. It's not fun.
And that is sort of where the game peaks. This would make sense because I think right around level 75, 80 is about where most of the average casual players are going to go. It seems like it's targeted to be...
Yeah, and that's fair. The average casual player, 75, 80, that's about it.
Be this way for whatever reason. And by the way, I think the whatever reason is money, because the majority of players that are going to play these nationally marketed
definitely
games
money
are
because of the
casual,
battle pass
average,
deal,
whatever
right?
you want to
Like,
call them, normal people.
it is what it is.
Not a lot of time, like I've said before. So when you're marketing those types of people, they design the game for those types of people to make the most type of sales, to make the most type of money. Okay, we all probably could have guessed that. For me, the Path of Exile graph looks very different. It starts like right here. Not very fun at all in the beginning. It's more and more fun, and then you hit this portion where you see the skill tree for the first time. Now, if you haven't seen it before and you're just a Diablo 4 player...
Okay, so this is new from when I played POE last. But I would say that in my experience, it's the same thing. It starts really, really low, and then it came up. The thing is I ended up somehow on some sort of... When I played, I think I got to a major town hub that was also the hub that everybody had to use for whatever season it was, seasonal thing. And then I just got stuck in the seasonal thing, and I have no idea where the actual story was going, and I wasn't done at all. I was maybe halfway done with the story, if that. It's probably closer to like a third of the way done, and when this happened. And so it's just, like I said before, PoE's great. It's just for me. And like the whatever it is, it goes on in my head when I'm dealing with games. It's just like there's so much to it that I'd rather play other games until they have the second one, and I can jump into PoE 2 and actually just have a feel for how the game flows better, rather than stumbling through it and trying to figure the fuck out, because it's just not enjoyable for me.
Let me actually show you, okay? Here it is.
I just don't like
that's
doing
not
it that way.
Here
it
is.
me.
Let's go all the way out.
Okay, never mind. This is the way it looks. He just had it zoomed in really far on something I've never zoomed in on, I guess.
So they hit that point, and then what happens is a good amount of people are going to shoot down in enjoyability. They're not really going to have a good time because they look at it, it feels overwhelming. Now, some of the people might actually have a split reaction, and the enjoyability goes way more up, but I think a lot of the people that are newer to these types of games are going to look at that, and it's going to feel overwhelming.
Yeah,
however,
exactly.
PoE,
I think
if
that's
you
the biggest
push through and you just spend time figuring out and learning the game, it starts to get more and more and more enjoyable. So instead what we have is something like this, which is just a steady linear graph of fun as you continue to play through the game.
I'm going to say this about what he's saying because what he's saying is fairly accurate. It's like I said, it's just I'm one of those people where it's an overwhelming amount of just stuff, but it's exciting. So I'm like, oh man, look at all of these things. And then you realize you're not able to actually explore through the whole tree. You will never get all the points to go through the whole thing. So you have to be more strategic with how you do it. And that's where I'm like, man, I wish I understood this game better. There's just so many seasons of content that you come across. And when you come across it, it's still accessible, right? It's not like other games where it's like, oh, the season's over, you don't get access to this now. It's like, oh, the season's over, but play the content, right? So you come across these seasons, which I may have got stuck in an old season, not even the one that was going on at the time. And you come across a season and it's literally just like here's a rabbit hole. And then I go, ooh, a rabbit hole, and I'm just stuck in the fucking thing. And then it ends up being the same thing as like I described Skyrim yesterday, where I just get stuck in the rabbit hole, and then I feel like I'm ignoring the game, and then it takes away from the game for me as being like an appealing thing for me to play. So I understand exactly why people enjoy PoE because it is very enjoyable. Like I said, it's the fact that I just get stuck in rabbit holes.
So for Path of Exile...
Also, this guy had a very similar take on Diablo 4 early on, right? This is so fun, this is so fun, this is so fun. Bing! Up, 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 up. And that's where he is with the PoE right now, is he's 2 days in, like you said, about 20 hours in 2 days, and this is his reaction. He hasn't got enough time to really be like, yeah, this is the way the game feels. This is the way that the game is as you get to the end. He's not there yet. He finished the story, so he said. I don't know if you can actually get through the story in 20 hours, because like I said, I had a rabbit hole pretty quick in. So, I don't know if he actually finished the story or if he did, he's gone through something else. So, I just don't know. But I personally, I don't think it's enough time in the game to give it a fair assessment all the way through, but to where he's at right now, just going through the story, this is his graph. And I would say that for Diablo 4, by the same point you finish the story, it's just a steady line. You don't have this happen. I guess maybe you have this happen if when you get into like the different trees of like the skill points for like I don't remember what it is, but where you can put up the different boards and kind of pick and choose where you're moving at, where you actually do most of your development, not your skill tree. They're like the Paragon tree or whatever they called it. That might give you some of this for some people. Like I said, for me it's like this is interesting, and I kind of like plateau because I'm trying to figure that thing out, and then I go back up again. It doesn't deter for me. It's just like, hold on, let me figure this out. I get it now. And then you move, right? So Diablo, pretty much straight line, and PoE is pretty much for the same type of mindset I have, straight line. But for people who this is a daunting thing, Diablo 4 probably just comes down to about here and then comes up. But Diablo 4 has also not got like 10 fucking seasons of shit. And I'm just pulling a random number out of a hat. I think there's actually like 20 seasons in PoE or something crazy.
Half of fun as you continue to play through the game. So for Path of Exile, the reason to quit the game is pretty much right in the beginning of the game. Whereas in Diablo 4, the reason to quit the game is after a lot of hours already into the game.
And
this
like I said, that's because of how long
they've
each
Path
been
of
around.
Exile are people that fairly early decided they like complicated types of games. By the way, I'm having a pretty good time with it. I went in fully blind, and for me, I am able to clear so far. We're going to finish the campaign today, as a matter of fact.
So he didn't have it finished up yet by the time he made this. Just for me clearing the final bosses, you can join right now as of the posting of this video. I'll have the link in the description or the pinned comment to see that live. But the point being, the Path of Exile players will have decided fairly early whether or not they like this style of game, where in Diablo 4,
you're going to need a pretty good amount of time in the game to decide whether or not it's a good game. So this has a split effect. The Path of Exile people tend to be
Fair.
more core dedicated fan base. You're going to see there's a lot of people that say a lot of good things about Path of Exile to play it, and the Diablo 4 people, by the time they get to the point that decides whether or not they're going to continue to play the game, they will either really, really like it and have a lot of hours into it and are okay with not having the in-game, or they're going to feel cheated by the time they get to the end game and be mad because they've already got 30, 40 hours or whatever into the game, and then they realize there's not as much left at the end, and now they're frustrated because they do actually like the game, but there's nothing to continue to like the game about at that point. To put it more simply, Path of Exile takes less time for you to decide whether or not you're into this type of game.
So, once again, that's strictly because of how long they've each been around. PoE has been around so long that the deterrent is at the beginning of the game because it's their talent tree has grown and expanded across all these different seasons and additional content drops that they've done, building on it and building on it and building on it. Because early on, if you actually look at reviews from when PoE started, it didn't do well. They made PoE do well over time. The thing is, having that drop-off there came with that development of over-time content. So it feels like it's early on, but really, it took time to get that. Diablo is still brand new. So you get to the end, and then you're like, ah, fuck. He's still not done with the campaign at the time of making this video. Is he going to have a similar drop-off after that? Right? Like, he's making this video preemptively, not having the same, hit the same point in the game, is what I'm saying. He still has access to all these different seasonal content things that he could go and dabble in that Diablo simply doesn't have because it hasn't been around for as long. Diablo 4, over time, may do the same thing PoE did over time, which is take the game from being like a 5 or a 6 out of 10 and make it an 8 or a 9 out of 10, because PoE was not great at the beginning. PoE was not talked about highly. It's why I didn't play it early on. It's because I was like, fuck it, I'll keep playing Diablo 3, right? So, PoE didn't hit the mark early on, and then it ended up with too many rabbit holes for me. I just get lost in the holes. Other people find the amount of option, or like the amount of just talent point distribution daunting and don't want to deal with it. So they're out. Diablo's is more straightforward, but very developed and interactive as well. Also going to do the same thing. And as far as the you get these two types of people where you've got this more core base that's happy to play PoE because they hit this early on. And in Diablo, they're angry when they get to the end and it's not there. There's also people who are like, okay, that was worth the amount of money I spent, and I'll just do the seasonal content, and then I'll leave, and then I'll come back, I'll do the seasonal content, and then I'll leave, and I'll do the seasonal content, and it's good for that. Okay. It's what a lot of people do with Path of Exile. The advantage to PoE for being a free game, right? Which he has in his pinned comment that he forgot to mention that PoE is free. So I'm going to do it here for him. It is free. It does give it a leg up in that department. However, at the same time, there's a third group of people to this, at least. There's probably like 4 or 5 groups of people to this. The most notable of which, in my mind, is the people who get through all of the content in Diablo 4. They hit this plateau where there's really just nothing to do except for make another character or play in hardcore because you've only played in the softcore gameplay, and to have these extra barriers and difficulties and challenges that exist through the game to make it artificially more fun. There's not that there's more content, it's that you're just doing it in a different way, right? So people will also look at it this way and they'll do that. You also have the people who get to the end of this, they hit this plateau where they're like, well, what the fuck am I doing this for, like I did? And they go, fuck. This is irritating. Instead of doing what I did where they went, I see how this is going to be, and just not playing the game, because that's the people who end up mad, right? That they spent the money to get there. A lot of them end up mad and they go, fuck this, I'm not playing. Whereas I just went, typical Blizzard, I'm done buying your games because your games are garbage. To, you could also have people, well, you do also have people who reach this point and their response, instead of any of those solutions or examples, is, you know what? I did spend $70 on the game. I'm going to continue playing the game because I spent $100 on the game, right? Because you could have spent $70 to $100 on the game, plus buying other merchandise for it, plus buying other shit. You spent a minimum of 70 and a base maximum of 100. Base maximum. If you're buying skins and like other aesthetic things out of the shop, you have exceeded that $100 and you continue to spend money in the game. Now you feel obligated to continue playing this game that you're also either disappointed or mad about, and you're not happy with playing, but you continue to suffer through it because you feel obligated due to the amount of money you spent on it. And I think that group of people, the people who feel stuck because of the amount of money they spent and like they have to continue playing, has to be acknowledged as existing, because the companies like Blizzard that are looking at their algorithms for how many people are playing, what type of content are playing, etc., they're looking at how much money they make each quarter, primarily. Oh, do we have people spending money each quarter? Good, we're good to go. And it's just like, man, but is it fun? Is it fun? So if the games aren't fun to you anymore, stop playing them. Just stop playing them. And if the game's not fun, stop playing. If the game wants to nickel and dime you by making you pay a premium price, which now is like $70 a game, plus you can get the limited edition for like 80 or 90 bucks instead, or you can get the premium edition for about $100. Then you also have like the battle pass, and then you've got all the in-game shop shit. Stop paying all this extra money. If they're going to charge you $70, expect a full game. If they're going to give you a game for free, expect an online shop, like an in-game shop. You're going to have money coming to the game for the developers to have any reason to develop the game at all or maintain it. One of the two will happen. Either they need to charge you a price for a full game, or they need to give it to you for free with a shop, or they could give you a lower price, like instead of $70, charge $40, and the aesthetic and the in-game shop is only aesthetic, right? It's not you've got day one DLC, you've got a battle pass, and you've got an in-game shop that sells you energy or like boost items for experience gains or whatever it is that are essentially pay-to-win mechanics. Maybe they just do a battle pass and an aesthetic shop. Do what Diablo did, basically, right? They gave you the battle pass and a shop that has nothing but cosmetic items, but they're not giving you a discounted price. They're still charging you a premium. And then they're also charging you for extra shit. And then they're also charging you for extra shit. I hate this model that nickel and dimes you. I would rather have the Path of Exile model that's free to play, but then you also have to pay for fucking tabs in your stash so that you can have more tabs, which is a hindrance as a player. It is technically, in a game like Path of Exile, a version of pay to win, because you don't have to waste time just picking shit up and going through it. You can just throw everything in your stash and have all the space in the world, whereas other people are limited because they aren't buying that, right? I don't like that model, but I would rather have that than spend $70 on the game, now buy a $30 battle pass, and oh, by the way, the best cosmetics are going to cost you $15 a pop as well. So now your $70 game costs you $120, and by the way, it's also full of bugs, glitches, and nonsense that we supposedly can't do anything about. Get out of here. That shit's so annoying. Just stop supporting games that are going to fuck you this way. It's not worth your time. It's not worth your energy. It's not worth the stress. Stress kills. So just kick them to the curb and do your own thing. Play a different game. Don't feel obligated to play because they got your money. Just take it as an L and be like, fuck, man. Not next time. How about that? How about next time you prove to me that you have a game developed that's actually worth my money, and then I'll buy it. But you need to prove that it's worth my money before I give you my cash. I would rather play a free game that's slightly irritating, but I didn't waste any money on in order to be obligated to play. Don't let yourself feel stuck because they set up a system to force you to give them as much money as possible, making the game cost 2 to 10 times as much as it did on paper because you buy all this extra shit.
It takes less time for you to decide whether or not you're into this type of game. Diablo will take a while because it seems like the game is really good for a long time until at the end you realize, I do really like this game, I want to double down and play even more, but then there's nothing left to do. Now, it might seem if we're just looking at this graph right here, that Path of Exile, and what I'm saying is the superior, more fun game, but that's actually not quite my point. You see, the drop-off here is actually fairly significant for people in Path of Exile. I do think Path of Exile, if you are a hardcore ARPG enjoyer, has a lot more content to do. I don't think anyone could really argue otherwise. However, the mass amount of people that are going to enjoy that style of game as compared to what I believe is a game designed for the average person is very different. The problem therein lies in the actual content itself. Diablo 4 is going to blow up much bigger and die a much quicker death, whereas Path of Exile, that's been out for 10 years constantly developing content, is a slow, steady growth pattern of people that are choosing to stay in for years and years and years. There's also one other point to make. If we go back to this graph for a moment, right about here, there is a split dimension in which your enjoyability can go down through the floor. And this is by bricking a character. Now, I am playing the game fully blind. It means I actually don't know any guides. I haven't looked anything up. I'm trying to get an experience of the game from somebody who just would download it on Steam and just play a game because it shows up on the Steam store in order to do these types of videos and give a review of what I believe is like the normal average guy. The problem is the normal average guy in Path of Exile, by the time you get to about this point, will have ruined his character and need to start the loop over again. This is a huge moment in which your enjoyability can go through the floor. This basically...
Yep. So that first dip, because the game is daunting, discourages most POE players early on. This second point that he's talking about, this is a point that if I hit, I would quit the game. I'd just stop. Like, you're telling me because I spent a talent point somewhere that is disadvantageous that I now have to fucking start at the beginning and do this bullshit again? I don't want to play. Don't want to play. If it's going to cost me money to fucking respec, like real hard-earned cash to change that, no thanks. I don't want to play. I just don't want to play. I would be a person who goes, oh, noted. Bye. And I'd be done. I wouldn't come back. I'd be gone forever. I wouldn't ever go back and start it over again. I wouldn't start a second character in a different class to do it differently. Nothing. I would be like, fuck this. This is a miserable experience. Why would you have this game for this long and not address the fact that this exists and there's not a way for you to just correct your spending of your talent points?
Forces two things. It forces the types of player that would actually want to min-max builds to be able to accelerate their progress effectively, because they're going to be one of the people that don't brick their characters because they actually are looking into the game to look ahead and figure out what to have happen. However, the second portion of this is that dilutes the amount of people on the planet that will enjoy this style of game, because not everyone wants or has the ability to do that in these types of game. That means the overall ceiling in the amount of players for Diablo 4, let's say 4, is going to look like this, where right about here is where the total number of players that are going to play for at any given time would be, but Path of Exile will only ever reach
Carrots and Associates is a full-service civil engineering company. Carrots has been with M&T Bank since...
It's right about here. One, because D4 was marketed more heavily, therefore going to receive more negative feedback from just more overall people, but also that Path of Exile itself requires a different mentality of game. You can pick up Diablo 4, play...
So, and that goes back to the quarterly earnings as well. Diablo is designed the way it's designed so that they can maintain quarterly earnings at a certain level to remain functional, to keep that portion of Blizzard operating and moving functionally forward. POE is free. POE isn't looking at quarterly earnings the same way. They're looking at like, hey, how well did we do with this season? What were the complaints? What were the compliments? What went well? What went poor? What did people enjoy doing? What did people dislike doing? And they're looking at it from a different perspective because they're using their earnings portions to figure out where to focus development. Blizzard's just looking at, hey, did this bar come down or did it go up? Did it come down or did it go up? Are we losing money or are we making more? That's what Blizzard cares about because Blizzard is part of a big corporate shell that is looking at constantly, if you're not making more money, you're losing money. So they need more profits every quarter or we're going to have to shut down this project. Or you're going to have to come up with a damn good reason for us to continue funding it. Whereas POE is in a different boat. So they don't need to have constantly higher. They aren't trying to constantly push the game further. They understand that they're getting a bigger audience and player base because of the fact that they have a product people currently enjoy, and they just try to maintain having people enjoy it and speak highly of it. They also understand people in my position where it's like, there's too many rabbit holes, I get stuck, I don't want to play it. And that's why they're talking about POE too.
Casually for a short amount of time and have a better experience than someone who does the same amount of research into Path of Exile. Fairly quickly into Path of Exile, you will realize you are being punished for not taking the game as a job. So where does that leave us? Well, basically the conclusion I've come to is this. If you're the type of person that hops from game to game, likes to try out trending games, does not play the ARPG genre solely, and is somebody who just wants to see what the latest thing is, try Diablo 4. You're going to get your money's worth out of the game. It is $70, and you will get probably 30 or 40 hours of good enjoyability out of it. You can
30, 40 hours for $70, depending on how you look at it, you could say is worth it, like you did. Now, if you're me, you're going to say $70, not really worth it. It's not worth 30, 40 hours of enjoyment. You're getting fucked. And the reason I say this is because if you compare it to movies, it looks good. But if you compare it to other games, spend $70 on, what was it? On the new Star Wars game, right? I keep wanting to say the old ones. So, Fallen Order. Let's say you get Star Wars Fallen Order or the one after Fallen Order, right? You're looking at about 100 hours of gameplay things to do. That's worth $70. Look at Baldur's Gate 3. Baldur's Gate 3 is the best example currently to give for a game that is worth $70. You spent $70 on this game. I still haven't heard about anybody having bugs and bunch of nonsense like that they're running into in Baldur's Gate 3. Only good things. People are spending 3 hours just in character creation and not even getting into the story yet because they're having so much fun with the character creation and they're so invested into creating the character the way they want it that they spend hours there. That game is going to be worth $70 because it's a completed game. Diablo 4 is not worth $70 because they also want to charge you for the battle pass. They also want to charge you for cosmetics. They also, see what I mean? The list goes on. Diablo 4 is not worth $70. They're nickel and diming you. They are nickel and diming you. I wouldn't mind if you wanted to do that. Once again, 35, 40 bucks, cool. Here you go. I understand there's going to be a battle pass and bullshit. But 70 bucks? Stop fucking me. Give me a finished product. Don't give me something full of bugs and issues that you're still having to go through and fix and maintain, where you're fucking my character over and making it weaker all the time or making it stronger all the time. And then you're constantly tweaking how strong or weak it is in certain areas, where you have an entire list of stat things that you can roll on your items that do absolutely nothing. They don't actually improve your survivability or your damage output. They do nothing for you. Don't have those in the game then. Just get the fuck rid of them. What are they doing if they don't do anything? That's Diablo 4 for 70 bucks. You're not getting your money worth. You're not.
Stretch it out to 100, and then at that point you have received your money's worth. Diablo 4 will probably not be the game for you that is going to be your main game that you play for years straight. Maybe they'll save it with the new seasons. I don't know. I couldn't tell you. But what I will tell you is that Diablo 4
it's the only
is
hope
probably
Diablo
a
has.
temporary game that is enjoyable for a certain time span. Path of Exile is a different type of breed. It is the type of game that the longer you spend in it, the more you get into the community, the more and more you get into min-maxing. And if you're the type of person that doesn't want to put 100 or 200 hours,
I'm not big on
1 or
min-maxing.
2,000 hours into a game, then Path of Exile is for you. Or if you are an ARPG enjoyer that wants to just go absolutely crazy in these types of games, or feel like you're the only one on the planet that has your build, that is Path of Exile. But again, it's going to require much more time, much more dedication, many more hours to get that max enjoyability out of it. There are different types of games within the same genre, but they appeal to different people, which is, I believe, why we see such a large amount of arguments between POE greater than D4, D4 greater than POE. They're offering different products for different type of game enjoyers, and I think that's okay.
He's right.
Planes.
He was right on that last note. Like, that is what's going on, essentially, with why people argue about it, is just because of the fact that for some people, it's enjoyable to sit and get fucked over because they don't look at it the way that I look at it, where you're getting fucked over and being fed bullshit, and other people are spending the same amount of money on a game, and they're getting a complete product that's actually just ready to go. So I hate getting fucked around on my money for a game. If I give you money for a product, give me the completed product. Don't give me a product that's in production. You're charging me good money, I want my money's worth.